All right, in this chapter, we're going to be talking about the components of a parts invoice. And if you do anything related to retail part sales, this is probably going to be one of the most important chapters you'll come across because it's going to explain to you how all the components of the parts invoice actually interact with things like customers and the parts that are actually getting added to the invoice. So let's talk about that. One of the things I want to point out is you can save yourself a lot of time getting to a parts invoice by just going up to the top of the toolbar that we see here and clicking the little green box, which will take you straight to a new invoice in a new tab. A lot of times people come over, they click sales, that's one click, they got to click add. And when you talk about that many clicks over a year, over a couple years, they can add up. So again, just kind of wanted to point out the best way from anywhere in DX1 on any page to get to any invoice, if you have the correct permissions, is to use the little colored squares up top. All right, so let's talk about the components of a parts invoice, and we're just going to take it from the top left and work our way down. So we've already talked about invoice concepts. In previous chapters, we've talked about how you can add customers to an invoice. Here's where you're going to do that again. By now, if you've watched all the chapters, this should be kind of common knowledge about what we're about to do. But again, we can look here and we can select a name. We can find a customer that we want. We can put them in. We can decide if we want to do a ship to, anything along those lines. If I want to, I can check the box. And one of the things you need to understand in an invoice, and this is an important concept of a component, is that when you use or add a ship to customer, you're going to see a question here every time asking you, should I tax at the customer location or, make it tax exempt? And you got to know your own state's regulations and your counties and whatnot. But let's just say, as a general principle, in most cases, when people come in and buy parts at your parts counter, if you do charge tax, it's going to be taxed at the rate of the dealership zip code tax. But for many laws, when we ship something to somebody, if the tax rate's different, that's the tax rate they should be paying for sales tax. We've all bought stuff on Amazon, it's no different. So just make sure you understand when you do add a ship to customer, in most cases, unless they should be tax exempt or the state is tax exempt, like Montana or Oregon, for example, you're going to want to make sure to continue to say charge tax. If you need to remove a ship to or a customer, again, you can just click the little X there. All right. So those are the top components around a customer. We have a PO number field. A PO is where you can come in to enter exactly that, a PO number from one of your customers. Maybe there's another dealership purchasing from you, a third party retailer. I've worked with government entities that have PO numbers. So when people come in and purchase them, there's a reference. So this is where you could enter that PO number, and that PO number can be searchable later. It's in the header of the invoices and other information that we have. This is where you can set the date of the invoice. I do want to mention there is a little drop down arrow here. It's a little bit dynamic, meaning you can show some more or less depending on what you use. You can see here, if you really want to get detailed, you can put in who a referral came from, friends, what type of lead source referral if you wanted to. If that's not your thing, you can condense it down a little bit more where you'll just have access to the salesperson and date options if your permissions are correct. We do also have components here to make an invoice locked from voiding, quick voiding, or smart voiding. Again, I've mentioned that tool in a number of chapters. It really can help keep your system maintained, but maybe something that you're working on, you want to keep locked from the process, so you can come here, toggle this on. When you do that, it'll keep it safe from some of the automatic processes or quick voiding. And then when you do add a customer into an invoice here, this drop down here is the preferred notification method. And I mentioned this in other chapters before too. If you're using DX1's customer notification tool, which I really hope you are, this is the manner in which it has to be set. A lot of times people don't realize it says not set because they didn't set it in the customer record. So when you come in, make sure you can set the method to whatever you think that customer prefers. If they like text messages or emails, at least for this particular invoice, that's exactly how the notifications will kind of trend towards the customer. So that's, basically all your components of the top part of an invoice. Um, We also will talk a little bit about the buttons here on the top right hand side. We have the complete sell button. I think that's pretty obvious. We've seen in previous chapters already. Save does exactly that. It'll save the invoice, put it on hold. At any point in time while I'm in the invoice, if I need to print or I want to send it as like an SMS or an email to basically get the receipt type window up, you can see I can do that here. Maybe I'm making a pick ticket for this customer. I could quickly send it to them that way. You can see when I did do hit the receipt button, regardless of hitting save, you probably saw the toast notification that popped up saying the invoice has been saved. That's required in order to send, and now we can see that, at least in this example, we're to a quote part of our invoice. We also have a menu drop down here, and I'll tell you, depending on the state of the invoice, meaning where it's at in a process or things that have been done, some of these invoices options may not be shown. But just to show you what we have here, we have new invoice, send an email. We've already seen how that worked. Maybe you have an invoice you're creating, just from scratch for an RO. You don't have to go into the RO to create the invoice there. You could actually just open up a new invoice like I'm doing right now. You could hit attach to RO. It'll show you a match of listing customers, let you search. You can pick an RO and then it'll give you a list of jobs, or you can come back and create a completely brand new RO with a completely brand new job. Really great tool if that's part of your work process. You can void the cell, we've seen that, or you can also combine an invoice. So it doesn't even have to be the same customer. Obviously, you would probably do it with a customer, but if I find an invoice that I have on hold, I can pick one like this. I can click add selected. It'll kind of show me some of the details of the original invoice. I can say combine invoice here. And oops, I should have picked up my parts first. And then I can hit my combine invoice. And I could have now brought this invoice in here as well. And I can complete my sell. So those are some of the components there of the menu drop down. And again, depending on the state of an invoice or other conditions, you may or may not see some of those options. All right, so those are our top components in terms of our button. Cancel will obviously take you out of the RO and bring you back to the screen. So as we move into the next section, I'm going to start with a new invoice. All right, so we're going to now start to talk about the parts grid, if you will. That's one of the things you could call this area is a grid or a section, if you will. So let's talk about the components we have here. We have a quick search. We've already talked about this in part management. We've talked about it with customers. It's an easy way to look up part numbers or see matches of certain part numbers. I can look up things by description, measure. I could put in cup, and you can see I can start to maybe potentially get some good matches there, measuring and cup. And you can see it wants to match up stuff that's bold. It can tell me if I have the same thing in different catalogs, whatever it may be. This allows you to hit show more, which will pull up a list of finding more parts and accessories, a little bit bigger view if you need, if you're not seeing the results. And in the end, you can always find the part you want and click the little plus icon to add it to a parts invoice. And this is a really great search if you're looking for tire sizes. Maybe somebody comes in and they're looking for specifically a 120 70 of a tire. You can see I'm starting to get some matches down here and some bolds. It's a dash 17. So I start to get all my matches, or should now start to show things that match with 120-17. I can quickly see what I have in stock for the size. I also could have looked by just to see what sizes I have in stock for a particular type of tire. For say I have a bunch of Sport Demons, I could come in here and I could quickly see what different sizes I may have in inventory. Just a reminder, you can move these columns again here so I can see the different sizes and whatnot. So again, just a different way for you to quickly find parts you're looking for without maybe going to your catalog or just opening up the part search and doing the whole search again anyways, trying to save you clicks. We also, on this top area, have the ability to search kits. So we've already had a previous chapter where we talked about how to get kits. We've even covered in that video what the kit process looks like, but quickly I could come in and I can pick a kit and I can add it to an invoice. kits come in and they're clearly displayed and labeled with green text, so I know that these parts came in as part of the kit. Again, if you'd like to know more about this process, go find the previous chapter where we talked about part kits, where it'll go through a whole process. We also have the ability to add fees to a parts invoice. They can be created here, they can be managed in dealership settings, but you'll have a list of things you have here. Maybe I am going to sell a tire and there's a tire disposal fee that I need to add to the invoice. As you saw, I just did that there. You can also do any of these three options that we just saw by clicking the magnifying glass here. Those icons we just clicked are all representations of these drop down options. So maybe I'm looking for a part and realize I also want to search for fees. I can do that here as well. So that's just the few different ways other than manually typing in a part number that you could search, find, or get things like kits or fees into a parts invoice. Now that we're in the parts invoice, we have different components that make up our list here. So you can see when a part is added, we have some icons over on the left-hand side. If I want to remove a part from my list, I can click the trash can. Yes, I'm going to remove it. Pretty easy to remove the part. This is a lost sale icon. So for those dealers who track things like lost sales, this is where I can go in and say, hey, I might have lost 2 sales here because we were out of stock. And then this will go to a report and it will show in the details of that part under the lost sell area. So if you're one of those dealers that likes to optimize that process, you can do that there. You also see as we work our way across the part number into description, depending on the vendors, you may see a large number of icons here. This one is a dealer to dealer parts locator. So it'll show you a list of dealers that have that part in stock, how you might be able to get a hold of them, how far away from they potentially are from your dealership. Now, we'll never show how many on hand or available that they have or you have if you opt into this process to find dealers, but it's a good way to just network within the DX1 dealer network. I also want to mention, depending on the vendor, you might see icons next to these as well that have a manufacturer icon. If you see those types of icons, what that allows you to do is to click it and see part availability. There'll be another chapter here towards the end of the part that's just going to talk about the different types of integrations that are available, where we'll demonstrate some of that technology then. So make sure to keep an eye out if you're interested in what I'm talking about for a chapter on integrations for parts. We also, you can see here, we have a red exclamation mark. That means there's a part detail memo. When I go down here and click it, it takes me to the part information tab, and I can see any particular data that's been added. In this case, I just made a note that it was added from Fiche to create the icons there. But you might say, hey, these pads need this type of fluid or a brake line or a part that somebody might not normally think to get. So again, don't miss out on that functionality. Again, a lot of people can have different resolutions on their screens, so don't forget, if things feel like they're over 2 lines and you don't like the way it looks for your screen resolution, don't forget you can drag things out. My part numbers, I don't need that much space, etc., to get the view that you want. All right, so as we keep working our way from part number to description, we got some icons. We can see a particular vendor that part is related to. If there were bin locations that were added, we'd see those here. This is our sold column. Now, in this case, when we added parts into inventory, we didn't have any. So just as a default, they go to the special order column. Again, we're going to have a separate video coming up here in a minute, which you're pretty much seeing is how to sell a part over the counter. But we'll go through that process separately as we're just really talking about components. So we have our sold column, our special order column, we have our layaway column, we have the price that's coming in based off the information that's provided in your part inventory in conjunction with the type of price method you have set. In the column next to that, we have discounting. So if we wanted to offer a discount, again, and we have the right permissions, we can do that. I also can change the price of a part. So if I want to discount it to a flat fee, I could do that here. Hit $10, it'll auto calculate the discount from that side. So whether I'm changing the prices or just doing a flat discount, you can see they're gonna work in conjunction there. You'll also see some icons over here to the right. So this is where you can come control the tax on a particular part. In this case, let's just say this part was tax exempt. I could come, I could check that box, and I could say, oh, well, this whole invoice is supposed to be tax exempt. Or I could say assign to the selected item. In this case, we'll assign to the selected item because the reality is if you want to make an invoice tax exempt because the customer's tax exempt, you could have set them as tax exempt in the customer record. And then when the parts are automatically added to the invoice, they'll be tax exempt. You wouldn't have to come here and do this each time. So this is more, hey, I'm having to make a decision as I go. So I can say assign to that item. You can see once I did take away the tax, the icon is turned red, just to kind of help you understand that now this part's a little bit different from the others, meaning it has no tax charged. You also see an icon here, and this is a shipping charge. Now, this can get people a little bit because there's two types of shipping. There's shipping you will pay potentially to get a part coming to your store. Maybe somebody needs something next day air. You're going to get charged by the vendor. And then there's the shipping that you want to charge to the customer for shipping it to them. And so that's what these fields are. If I wanted to charge them $50 for getting it here to the dealership, then I would put the $50 in here. I could say, yeah, we're doing that because it's next day delivery and hit save. And when I do that, that shipping charge is shown right here. So again, this is the shipping that you're charging the customer for what it's going to cost you just to get it shipped to your dealership. And if you were wanting to then charge them to ship it to them, you would come down here and type in shipping. And when I do that, it's an automatically built-in item into DX1. You notice there's no vendor. Then I can say, how much I'm going to charge them. So I can come over here and say, yeah, it's $50 to get it to you, and it's another $75 to next day air it to you. And then that line will come off on the invoice. It's added in. Again, you can decide whether it should be taxed or not. You can set that. Let's say we want to assign to select item. And then again, so we have our shipping charge that is being charged to the customer for getting the part here. And then we have our shipping and handling that we're going to charge to the customer to ship the parts to them. So I just want to make sure that that's explained carefully to dealers because there is some confusion of how to use those fields. A lot of times people will put in the shipping, they understand this part of the invoice, but then it'll say $0 here. If I take this shipping charge off here and get rid of it, then that'll update and show $0. And a lot of times people are expecting to see that $75 show here under shipping charge. So just want to make sure in this video there's a clear distinction from that. And then additionally, you can discount parts right from here as well. It's the same thing that we did by clicking into the field or into the unit extension. So those are your mechanisms that allow you just to control discounting again in a different way. Okay, so those are your components of the parts grid. Again, we'll talk about selling a part, and we'll go through the whole process here officially in a moment or in an upcoming chapter, and we'll do the same thing for special orders and layaways. So don't worry if you're looking for more detail and what the whole process looks like. From the bottom part of the invoice, now let's talk about what we got down here. So cashiering, this tab is where we'll eventually go to cash out our products. If you are signed up with our integrated payment partners, you'll have the ability to request payments via e-payment. We'll have a specific chapter about that as well, where we'll walk through the process. Here's where you can add in a specific note about this particular invoice. Again, we already saw a little bit earlier the part information tab. And, to see what you get here within the part information tab is a lot of information about the particular part. And that's really important to understand if you're trying to just look for details that you don't see in the grid. Can it be special ordered? What's a part code? A little bit more of the things that you're just not seeing in the grid. You can also see any particular notes that need to be added about the part from this invoice. And then if you needed to add that part detail memo, so you would see that red exclamation mark, you can do that. And again, to add in that memo, all you can do is click that pencil right there from the icon, which will bring you here into the detail without searching it in part inventory. I could come over here, add my demo note, hit save, and then next time, well, it already updated. When I click that, I can see my note that I just added there. Pretty simple process to use. We also have a frequently bought together tab. So when people are buying things in particular from particular vendors, and I don't have it set up here for the demo, but what it'll do is, if I'm selling some oil here, it'll show me frequently bought together parts. that are bought with that for the authorized vendors I have. And that's a really great tool. Make sure to see your employees know how that works, because you can really use that tool to upsell and find out better ways to potentially stock better items that tend to get grouped together. So that's some great functionality. If you're a multi-location store, and you happen to have a part in your inventory that's in another store's inventory and you highlight it, you would see a tab right here next to frequently bought together, that will show you what stores in your organization may have that part and the quantity on hand and the quantity available. So that's a great feature, but the part has to be in stock for it to show up. You can have the same part in the stores, but if there's not any in stock, it won't come up in the results. It won't just say, "Oh, hey, you have 0 in each store." So just kind of keep that in mind. Over here on the right hand side, you can see as we've been kind of demonstrating certain things, we've added some items to the invoice. So now this is really our calculations, our breakdown of our accounting. We have our subtotal of our invoice, our discount. Again, I could discount the invoice, the entire invoice, in this case, because I'm down here using it for the entire side of things. But I could pick a retail discount, a cost plus discount. That's a quick way. This is a cool tool that gets overlooked. We know out here a discount is always retail, but if I quickly wanted to calculate the cost of a discount off a cost plus, I could do that, say 10% or 40%, and hit save, and then it recalculates out. Again, it's a pretty cool tool if you have that situation. Again, most dealers will just set up the customer to be cost plus or retail discount, but I just wanted to make sure that's a quick way to do that if you need to on the fly. Again, we can go in, and on this case, we were adding a shipping charge for a part item, but in this case, we can still go in and just add a shipping charge for the invoice. Maybe it's not $50 for all the parts. It's going to be $50 to get these parts to me, because all these parts are coming one day. So I don't need to, put it on a particular part. I'm just going to say we have a next day air delivery shipping charge for $50, and then it gets added in there. And you can see it just picked the last part on the list to add it to. We have a restocking fee field. This is something I've mentioned in the dealership setup chapters that you can configure. So if parts end up getting returned, you can set a percentage. It'll automatically recalculate to make sure that your users and your customers are paying for all those things. We also have our totals here, our tax fields, our payment surcharges, our total invoice amount, any type of payment amounts that have been taken. So if I click this here, I can see have my payment amount and my balance due. So those are all the components of a parts invoice. One last thing, I guess you can notice here, when a payment was taken, it does show payment details. I can print a breakdown of the payments up until the point of saving the invoice. I could remove the payment if I needed to accidentally. I could update the payment if I need to once I do save the invoice. And in this case, it's asking me for a customer because I have special order parts. You can see that's one of our components of the invoice, is it will require, we have shipping, so it's requiring a ship to customer. Again, so once I do those things, I can go in here and see now that I owe them a little bit money because I gave them a better discount. I could refund it, again, hit save. So those are our components of a parts invoice. In upcoming chapters, we'll go into more detail about selling a part, special ordering, and layawaying parts.